Good evening, everybody. Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I just saw something. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat. Today is Thursday, September 1st, 2022, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, a citizen journalist, and the director of investigations for the Experiencers Support Association. I'm also the former national chief investigator for MUFON Canada and the former international field investigator trainer for MUFON in general. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Remember to super chat, click the $sign next to your name in the comment box below. So this is it. This for the entire season. This is episode number 29. The entire season, I have asked every guest on this show at the end, what shape is the Earth? And not a single one of them could agree that, or gave the same answer. So there's a variance of different shapes, different sizes. And the reason why I ask this is because when we're looking into ufology, when we're looking into paranormal studies, and we're fighting with each other, we need to agree on some facts, even though it's odd and it's strange and it's weird. Now, so tonight is a special guest research tells me that should be the guy that knows everything about this movement. I know, I see a movement there, at least from everything that I do too. And I want to get into it. We're going to talk about it, might challenge it a little bit. But I'm on the side of the possibility that the Earth may not be the shape that we're told, and there's reasons behind that. So we're going to go into that, and we'll see where this takes us. All right. So tonight's theme, obviously, is flat Earth theory and research. Our guest for season 4, episode 29, is Mark Sargent. Mark Sargent asks, "Are we inside a Truman Show enclosed world, thousands of miles wide?" His YouTube channel offers a series of videos that shows not only is it possible, but likely. Growing up on South Whidbey Island, Washington, Mark K Sargent started his career playing computer games professionally in Boulder, Colorado. From there, he spent the next 20 years training people in proprietary software. In 2014, he looked into what is no doubt the strangest conspiracy ever, called flat Earth theory. And through extensive research, discovered that it wasn't so laughable at all, after all. In 2015, he released a series on YouTube videos that titled Flat Earth Clues, which delves into the possibility of our human civilization actually being inside a Truman Show, like enclosed system, and how it's been hidden from the public since 1956. I want to get into that. You can find Mark's content on his YouTube channel, in books, on Amazon, and on the Netflix documentary Behind the Curve, which I've seen. All right, and you can find him on YouTube. Channel is Mark K Sargent. So Mark, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down the rabbit hole of rabbit holes. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah.
Is your hat, the shiny hat you're wearing, is that supposed to be tinfoil? Because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so there's a little plug I do halfway through for this hat, but this hat is brought to us by, I'll do it now, by the TinFoil Hat Co. from Rex Bear from the Leak Project. It's actually, I think it's supposed to imitate the Marty McFly hat.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Very nice.
Yeah, so
very nice.
This is the out of time hat.
And my second question really quick is what part of Canada are you in? I didn't.
Yeah, I'm in Ontario.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, I would normally be wearing a Canadian Space Agency Lives t-shirt, but apparently they only sell the NASA ones.
I lived in Vic for a year.
Okay, awesome.
Victoria. If you live up in Canada, it's not Victoria and Vancouver, it's Vic and Van.
Okay. All right, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
All right, so we're going to start with an icebreaker question. Which normally you're asking the questions. Who knows? Who knows where this is going to go? So the icebreaker question is brought to us by Stacey, who is running our Experiencers Anonymous group, which was last night, by the way, and the last Wednesday of every month for those who are affected by the phenomenon and want to talk to each other. And where is the icebreaker? Okay, if the Earth is flat and surrounded by an ice wall,
right?
In your opinion, what is beyond the wall? That's an icebreaker.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's not the heaviest question ever, but I do get that one quite often, which is, okay, if we are living in an enclosed world snow globe, which we'll go into detail a little bit later, what's outside of this? For me, it's a lot more snow globes, a lot more buildings, and what's outside of there is probably an unlimited universe. So, because this world is 99.9% conflict, which is a bigger trail to go down. But yeah, that's what I think it is. I think we're not just a one-off. There's many more like us.
Okay. I need to know. So my research has suggested that the extraterrestrials for aliens comes from extra land, which could be outside of the dome.
Oh yeah.
Garden of Eden comes into play. There's so many cross-section theories in this UFO paranormal community that would make sense in this phenomenon, which is why I'm so drawn to it. But as an investigator who has to be neutral and look at the evidence, I'm interested in getting to know that through you, because, my analytical mind says it can't be true, but then my conspiratorial mind is like, it is. And I don't know why. Yeah. So where do you want to start with that? How do you know this?
How do I know that? Are we talking about just how do I know the world is flat, or what are my opinions regarding flat?
You know what? Let's look at the term flat Earth.
Okay.
So I've also seen a lot of criticism and the fights that are used to say that this isn't true, and it's kind of childish in such a way. And I don't think it literally means the Earth is flat. Could be wrong.
No, in fact, the only reason I don't like using the term flat Earth either, and there's a reason why in the documentary I was not shy about saying that because anyone in the conspiracy / truther world, they go through just about every other conspiracy first, then get to flat Earth, then revisit other things, then look at flat Earth again, maybe, because everyone hates flat Earth. The term, we are conditioned to make it offensive. It is the only conspiracy we debunk to children, which is like I can't speak for Canada, but in the corner of American classrooms, you have the American flag sitting up there, and that sits there for 12 years until you graduate. And then below it, you have a globe. It's been sitting there. And seriously, at the end of those 12 years, there are people that join the military partially based on the fact they've been staring at that flag for 12 years. And the globe down below them, it's like, oh yeah, same thing. I live there. Flag, I live there. Globe, I live there. So when I say flat, I mean, I can't use, again, I'm not trying to, your audience, I'm sure, is wonderfully enlightened and very intelligent and all that. But there's a lot of people in this world that are mouth-breathing troglodytes. They just are. They're just really, really dumb. And the United States, we're way up there when it comes to that. When we get out of school, we don't know anything about geology or microbiology or physics or engineering. We're lucky if we can drive. Seriously, you have to go to university to gain some skills. High school, it's nothing. So when I say flat Earth, that is the simplest term I can use for people, meaning you have to start somewhere. You have to start on the ground. Now, around it, of course, I say enclosed world. You're not just living on a space which is 99.9% flat, accounting for valleys and hills and stuff like that. You're living in a building. A terrarium, a planetarium, depending on how old you are, a Hollywood backlot. You are living in a soundstage with walls and a floor and a ceiling that are so big and were so well hidden that our best and brightest didn't figure it out till almost 1960. And because we just didn't have the tech to see it. So you're living in, let's say it's a building. We'll square it off. And inside that building is a giant saltwater pond. And in that giant saltwater pond is a bunch of islands, which we call continents. And that's where you are. Above you, everything you see in the sky, we know the ground pretty well. But above us, every light you see on the ceiling that's just it. The stars, the planets, the sun, the moon, they're all just varying degrees of lights on the ceiling, no different than a planetarium. That's where you are. And as far as the one of the follow-up questions, I know you can stop me because I do ramble, but I've done this for 7 years now, which is, it's like, okay, what's below flat Earth? It's like, tell me. Science is the deepest hole ever drilled is less than 8 miles or 12 kilometers. So wherever we are is not very thick, or whatever it is very well constructed, and we can't get out of it. Let me segue really quick over to your UFO thing, because I know you brought it up, which is, are there other buildings out there? Sure. Are there beings out there that are flying around that aren't us? Yeah, I've seen them. Go out with night vision binoculars. You can see them all the time. All the time. They're there. The big question is, are they in here with us, or are they allowed to travel between realms? I don't know, because whatever they're doing, the rules there seems to be protocols in place, meaning one of the oldest UFO arguments in the book is, why hasn't a UFO, big giant spaceship, landed in the middle of Kansas, and gotten out and taken some selfies and signed some autographs? Well, I think there's protocols. Anyway, sorry, that's my opening rant.
No, it's just, it's interesting, because like what we understand is that the possibility of these crafts being transmedium, so being able to transfer between, different, well, I guess water and air, but I mean, they could be interdimensional. So if that dimension is outside the firmament, outside the wall,
right,
or the dome, or whatever that is, then it has to be possible too. And this theory drives me nuts, not because of the idea, but because the associating facts that kind of go along with it, that makes it possible, highly probable.
Right.
But still yet can't be confirmed, because I'm not an astronaut. Don't go to space, but there's restrictions. We can only go so far. And things like that too, to not let us know for sure.
They have protected the powers that be. Let's say the powers that be, I call them the authority. If you want to call them the order, or the world order, or whatever, when they decided to protect this thing in 1960. First off, I want to state for the audience, we had nothing to do with the construction of this place at all. Our civilization had nothing to do with it. Neither did any of the other previous civilizations. There are remnants of other civilizations around this world that also didn't have anything to do with it. Remember, our own broken civilization only goes back, 5,000 years? And then come on, you've got the sunken cities off of Japan, sunken cities off of India, the real pyramids, the Bosnian pyramids, the Mexican pyramids, Puma Punku, Machu Picchu, Bimini Road. It goes on and on and on and on. So we didn't have anything to do with the building of this place. And I forgot the initial statement I was going to make. Oh crap! I went off into the weeds. I don't think I can bring it back right away. Crap!
I was saying that's highly probable, based on other conflicting theories and associated facts, that it may be possible. I'm trying to.
Yeah. Are there other things in here with us? Oh, I'm sorry. That's what it was. So they can't be proven. That's what it was. Oh, thank God. Okay. So what I mean was, the powers that be, the authority, protected the bare essentials that they needed to do to protect this place, meaning they sealed off Antarctica and they sealed off the upper edge. And that's exactly what you want to do. And they did it simultaneously. People, again, the Antarctic Treaty was put into place in 1959, and the Van Allen belts were announced in 1959. Coincidence that exactly what you would want to and what you would need to do to protect the integrity of the secrecy of this place, you did simultaneously? Sure. You militarize space, and then you put a big fence that says go away in Antarctica. The Antarctic Treaty, which was one of the keys for me getting into it, says that no corporation can set up shop in Antarctica ever. It's the only
surround it.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's talk about that real fast, which is Antarctica means that if we're in a building, one of the continents can't look the same as the others. So the maps, every map that you see, even if it's on the AE map, the flat Earth map, most of the continents, roughly, you can recognize them. Even Australia looks like Australia. But Antarctica doesn't look like Antarctica. Antarctica on the flat Earth map is this giant continent that surrounds the entire thing. No matter which way you go, if you can bypass GPS, you're going to run into Antarctica. And Antarctica is not the beginning of it's not the edge, right? You know, people confuse it. I get that question. It's like, what about the cosmic waterfall in Asgard? It's like, it's not Asgard. It's not Asgard. It's not Thor. The Thor movies did us no favors whatsoever. The coastline of Antarctica is just the beginning of a much, much bigger continent. The United States Navy tried for 30 years, flew around with ever increasing levels of planes for 30 years until finally in the mid-1950s, that's when they figured it out. And that's when they started sealing the place off, which makes total sense, which is what I would do. And you're probably saying, why would you seal off Antarctica? Okay, think about this. You eventually, let's say, okay, you're going to let the oil companies come in there, right? Well, they're going to have the best planes, the best helicopters. What happens if a plane goes off course and goes where it shouldn't? All right. When you have that meeting, you have to come up with the rules for this. It's like, well, we're going to have to tie that loose end. Oh, you mean make sure they disappear? Well, how many times? How many times do we do that? And then finally, some guy at the end of the table, you know, those big long Illuminati tables where it's dark and everyone's smoking. The guy says, you know what? Just lock it down. It's not worth it. And, you know, it doesn't matter if there's $1 trillion worth of assets there. Does not matter. The hassle would be too great. And so Antarctica was locked down. And it's, you know, there's like 5,000 people at any given time in Antarctica. They're all military scientists. It's absolutely brilliant.
Now, if you look at like ancient religions, they all knew this.
Yes.
Prior to that.
Oh, yeah.
So I can understand the technology maybe wasn't advanced. I can understand the argument that maybe we just learn more and we're smarter, but we're not. I know that.
Right.
The human race, we're not that very smart. And they were smarter back then, but they knew it. And then it's the why. So the curiosity happens. Something happens. They go and they look. They explore. Something happens, and a decision is made.
Right.
Why do you think that?
Why do it? Why do it? It is one out of every 10 questions.
If we know, then we know. What's the difference?
Yeah, 1 out of every 10 questions I get is that question, which is why hide it? Why not just tell people? It's like, well, you got to know something about the rules of power, which is one of the highest rules of power is never give it up, ever, unless you absolutely have to. And it's like, what do you mean? Well, in this case, remember, we didn't figure it out. If our best and brightest didn't figure it out until 1960, for sure, then it's changed. Now, if you could find out in the 1500s, oh, yeah, maybe you might tell the population. Most population couldn't even read or write anyway. But let's say you're the king of France in the 1500s, right? You had wooden ships and you had horses. You're not going to be able to figure out anything in Antarctica. You are very, very limited. Now, fast forward to 1960, you have pressurized aircraft, you have big tractors, you have heavy diesel-powered ships. Oh, yeah, you could do a lot of stuff in 1960. The problem is that civilization has already been built. It's already been established. So now you're looking at it, again, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. You're part of the authority meeting, and you're like, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe we should tell people. And if you remember the Roswell movie, it was the same discussion, which is like, maybe we should tell people about Roswell, right? And they're like,
Right,
so
it's convenient to have the control. The control's already established. So many things have happened.
Yeah, what would benefit us? Probably nothing right this second. What could go wrong? Okay, well, there's 3 things that could really, really go wrong. One would be academically. Every university in every country would have to empty libraries. Right, astrophysics and astronomy gone until you figure out what that even means anymore. And then the remaining sciences on geology, biology, hydrology, archaeology, anything with an ology has to be retooled, completely retooled. And that's every university, everywhere. That's an academic nightmare.
A lot of money, a lot of retraining, a lot of things.
Oh yeah,
this is the lie of all lies. If it was true,
yeah.
Same thing if religion wasn't true. It's the same thing. Any argument. If aliens exist, it's
religion
changes the world.
Yeah, religion is the biggest why here. Economically, yes, world markets would have to be suspended for months, but honestly, that's a casino, so who cares? You know, they could shut down world markets right now, and yeah, there'd be some people lose or make money, but it's not like countries would evaporate. The biggest thing is religion, which is you have the 5 major religious houses of the world, which control 80% of the population, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. You would be giving them leverage against science simultaneously. And you'd be asking them, you'd be saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't take revenge against science for beating you over the head for the last 5 centuries with textbooks. And it would be they wouldn't. Oh my God, science would have a very tough time recovering, because religion would be like, okay, so you've been wrong about a really, really big thing. You know what? Let's revisit some of your old stuff, like, I don't know, the Big Bang Theory,
What else were you wrong about?
Yeah, evolution, dark matter. It would never end, because again, if you were wrong about this, you would be wrong. And it's not like the old one where I mentioned quite fondly. Cryptozoology, when science would laugh at every species that they hadn't found yet. People don't understand that, like the giant panda, before they forgot it, was laughed at by all scientists, and the giant squid, and the giant anaconda, and the coelacanth fish, and it's like, but then they discover it, and science is an apology. It's like, oh no, apparently it's a real thing, so we're just going to classify it. So no, it was a big deal. You don't. So anyway, 1960. All those things are thrown around, and then finally somebody at the end of the table, it's always one guy at the end, who goes, yeah, so we're gonna put a pin in this, and we'll get back to it much later, because again, you have to figure out when the public is ready. And I think we've been kind of allowed to talk about this recently over the last few years. It's not like we overtook the internet. They've allowed us through the algorithms to happen. And
it's how you've fact check the science. So science is theory, science is opinion, and science is also taught to us in many different ways, but it's based on what we were told, that was assumed or perhaps discovered or whatever. So like when that education starts, the people that are doing the work believe in the work because it's what they were told. But if what they were told was a lie from the beginning, that's where the anger gets in. That's when they start getting mad. And what I've learned when I ask this question at the end of all my show is try to see, like, with all how confident everybody is, this is the one thing we as a civilization should be absolutely fucking certain of.
Oh yeah.
And most people do not say that it's a globed earth. They question it and they pause, and I try to figure out why. You should be confident in that.
And that's changed over the last 7 years. Beforehand, going back, there's a wonderful quote I use going back all the way to I think it was 1946. George Orwell, the creator of 1984, when he said he wasn't a flat earther, but he was picking on science, and he said, when you walk down the street and you ask somebody, how do you know it's a globe, right? It's an automatic knee-jerk response. It's like, what are you talking about? We know. It is known, right? It's a given, right? And then you press them, you say, really? How do you know?
How do you know?
How do you know? And then they start getting angry. Yeah. And it's because they realize all of a sudden that they don't know, they were told. And there's a big difference. You were told, and your father and his father, going back as far as your family tree can even imagine, they were told for all these generations that it was a globe. But you never proved it for yourself. It is also the Tesla argument, which is, if everybody's just standing on the shoulders of other people and nobody checks the foundation to where the idea was from, then everybody up at that higher level, everything means nothing. Mm-hmm. And so it's an assumption. That's all it's ever been. And science, when it grew and turns into its institution, which is now scientism, they were never willing to let that go, because that is their bedrock. That is their NASA is their go guy. That is what they hang everything on.
And we have to have a civilization. We need hope. Yeah. So the idea of there being another place outside of this, if we go back there and be like, okay, we're trapped, people are going to fucking panic. So instead of telling them that, we're going to lie to them because we don't want them to panic. That makes sense.
Sure.
Over the years, we're getting smarter. We're starting to figure it out. We're starting to rebel because things don't make sense. Why not just tell us? Because you don't want to lose control.
Yeah, and it's also not just that they would panic, but you are admitting that there is a power larger than you. It's one of the oldest in the UFO world. It is one of the oldest things ever, which is you can't admit that you can't say that you rule the skies if you don't rule the skies. If these things are running circles around your fighters, your fighters don't look so great. If you all of a sudden say, oh yeah, you're living in a snow globe, and you didn't build it, then all they care about, trust me when I say this, all they care about is who built it. Yeah, go away, government. Well, who built this? They would panic for a little bit, but then they'd just be asking questions. They'd be like, you know what? The government gets knocked down in credibility almost instantaneously, and they're not willing to do that. They're just not.
So the government figures it out. They explore. A curious man goes, and they go to the wall, and they realize we can't go anywhere.
Right.
And then they decide to cover it up. Is that the way that it is always, or did at some point did they learn and communicate and connect with something on the other side to find out why? Like, was it direct? Was this a choice by man, or was it a command given by something outside?
Yeah, you could go either way with that, because there's a lot of evidence on both sides. Because let's say, for example, it depends if you believe that whoever you're talking to that isn't our civilization is telling the truth, right? Anybody could show up in any spaceship and talk to whoever. It's like, oh yeah, we built it and here are the rules. But then you might run into another group. It's like, they're lying. We know who it was. There's a great story of, again, a little side note is that there was a whole bunch of countries in Antarctica until World War II broke out. And then one country stayed, which was Nazi Germany. Really, really interesting, right? And the story goes, and I kind of like this story, which is that they were there during World War II. The Indiana Jones, the whole concept of Indiana Jones, like the Germans would do anything to win. Oh yeah, that's not a lie. They have the real society, absolutely real. That the rumors that a UFO crashed in Germany in the 30s and they reverse engineered technology. I'm totally with that. But if there was an Ark of the Covenant and they knew what it was, they were going after it. If Harry Potter's wand was around, they're going after it. Ring of Power from Lord of the Rings, they're going after that too. Anything. So if there was something in Antarctica, they were going for. So after World War II, the United States, sends a carrier fleet down to called Operation High Jump, and to supposedly root out the last of the Nazi bases. Whatever they did, because there's a lot of speculation, we're probably not going to get any of the story out of it. It was over by the time Richard Byrd went on television in 1954, because he wasn't worried about it. They were just talking resources in 1954. The story that I like was that the Germans asked one of the civilizations down there for asylum.
Oh.
And one of those groups, because the rules in place said they could treat it like a high school dance, which is, all right, we'll give you a science. You can't come back. Once you leave the gymnasium, right? You can't go drink in the parking lot and come back. You're not going to come back. And that was it. The rest of the Germans went to South America or whatever. But whatever happened in Antarctica,
which is close to the wall too. It's a place that you can't travel to as well. There's no tours in South America to get to Antarctica that I understand.
Oh yeah, no. Antarctica is just screams go away. I mean, people understand that it's snowy and icy and horrible, but they don't understand how bad it really is. I mean, there's no animal life. Penguins don't count on the coastline. No plant life, no older civilizations. The coastline is more or less a giant wall of snow. It's a couple hundred feet high. And then most of the continent sits at 14,000 feet high, which is incredible. And altitude sickness kicks in at 7,000 feet. Yeah. So there's nothing good about Antarctica. It's
Antarctica has the highest elevation. Of
any continent. It is no question. It's been mentioned in a lot of different texts, and there's no reason to go there, and it's extremely hostile. That you could spend, like, for example, it is the most expensive tourist destination you can go to. Canadian dollars, I think it's we'll say 19,000 roughly.
Yeah, which is like $2 American.
Yeah, 19 grand Canadian to go down there. And what are you doing? You're basically freezing your butt off and then taking pictures in a raft, on the water or next to a couple of penguins. I
saw a video, I think the other night or the night before, that kind of showed the tours, and it kind of brings it to the protrusions of the wall, like the furthest ways. It doesn't go around it, so it's big enough, it's long enough, it's high enough to be like, I've seen enough of it, I know that it's there. But yet you go around and you come back in Brazil or something like that in two places.
And which is what you would do if you were building this building, which is you make natural negative reinforcements on the outside to make it think like it's your idea to turn back. I talked about this in the clues, which was, imagine back in the old days, right? The water gets colder. All of a sudden you start seeing icebergs. And as you know, back in the old days, even now, we don't like icebergs. Back then they were a death sentence. And then, you get past those and then you just land of ice and snow.
Right.
What are you going to do there? And you have whatever supplies you have, you're going to have to take with you. Again, the American Navy flew around it for 30 years. Before they finally figured it out. And of course, I love the first thing they did. What men do when they find a wall, right, a barrier. It's like, get the cannon. We could bust through this thing. And again, the atomic weapons program, both us and the Soviets at the time, 4 years. That's all we did was fire straight up for 4 years.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what this place was.
Operation Fishbowl.
Oh, among others, yeah, it was part of the Americans. The Russians don't use names like we do. It's just some numbers. They're not as creative as we are. But yeah, Operation Fishbowl, and the first shot were medium megaton back when megaton was extremely hard to come by, and then every other shot after that was medium kiloton, and the triple digit kiloton range. And I knew exactly what they were doing. It's like, yeah, you're painting the sky. You have to figure out what the dimensions are, and the best way to do that is just hit it. And it's like, okay, use your trigonometry and say, okay, yeah, all right. And because once you create the space program, you have to know how high up your rockets are going before you have to make them go sideways. Yeah. And that's brilliant. And then again, you militarize space so that the private sector doesn't get involved in space until the last minute. And it worked. Because again, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, that's the thing that baffles me about this theory. It fits with it's the conspiracy of all conspiracies, and it's so wrong in so many ways, but yet it's so right if you connect it to everything. Everything makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you don't want to believe it. It is as far as
because it means everything is wrong. Your whole life is wasted. What it is fear, it's anger, it's madness.
Yeah, the 5 stages of acceptance apply here, which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I have seen people go through those stages for 7 years. And why not? If you're telling somebody, this is a big deal. This isn't like a conspiracy that you can bury in the desert. This isn't like a presidential assassination, right? This is like telling somebody after they've turned 30 that they're adopted. That's what this does to you. You throw that at somebody, immediately they're going to be like, no, not buying it, BS, no way. And then you keep hitting them. It's like, no, here's what I've got. I'm pretty sure. And you start rattling stuff off. And it doesn't mean anything to them until the second they believe it. And the second they believe it, even for a moment, it just ripples back in time. It's that post-traumatic thing where they start reviewing everything they did, going all the way back to, the pre-kindergarten. And they don't know what to do with it. And it's kind of, and I don't want to overuse the Matrix too much, but it is, the line from the Matrix, very similar, which is, we only free minds after a certain age because of what might happen. Neo lost it. Just freaking lost it. He blacked out. He almost had a stroke.
Well, when I lost it, when I got to that point where I was starting to accept the possibility, that was a dark time. I was in the lights were off, I was wearing a hood, I was just thinking to myself, this is fucked. But then once you go flat, you don't go back. And then, but at the same time, in my career, I have to be neutral. I have to look at the evidence, and the evidence on this side is no further to being confirmed than the evidence on the other side. So both cannot be proven, at least by myself, because I can't go to space to see it. So I need to try to, look at the facts as it's been presented to me, and then look outside and look at things and be like, well, why go through the effort? That makes sense. That seems that, but what does that mean? It's flat. And then you look at the insults where people think it's just like a pancake, like a piece of that. I get that. That's just childish insults. It's within it. It could still be a globe. It could still be a whole bunch of things. It could be inside something else. So all these things could exist.
Yeah.
I have a map over here. I have 3 maps over here that can't really be seen, but there's the Gleason's map over on this side here. And that's the other thing too, is when I'm doing my work and triangulating things, that was the seller for me, especially in ufology, is understanding patterns, didn't work on the map that I had, the globe map. But
Right.
then working with the same stuff on the flat map made sense, connected all the dots, everything else like that. I was like, this is the map I need to work with.
Yeah.
But understanding that could still be a polarized view of a globe,
Right.
but, you know, all those other things. But I have a map here. It's a Spanish map. Forget the year that it came out with. You probably know what it is. But it has the ice wall, but there's no ice.
Right.
It's all got animals. It's got mermaids. It's got cryptids. It's got all the monsters. So what's that? You know, do you know?
Well, yeah, that was Cece's question down below. It's like, what if Antarctica melts? Well, yeah, no, there's land under there. It's not like just some mysterious giant iceberg. No. There's land underneath there. And at some point, I think probably during one of the early iterations of this place, it didn't have snow. You know, if you go back to, I don't want to necessarily go into biblical stuff, but there was a wonderful thing. I think it was the book of Jasher that Enoch was walked off the earth. There was a land bridge, like I think with the bottom part of South America that connected to Antarctica. Yeah. And when he got there, the quote was, there was just ice and snow and more ice and more snow. And I thought that's really interesting because, as you know, most of your Middle Eastern stories don't really touch on snow. It's pretty hot and deserty and camels and stuff like that. But oh, and by the way, I got to mention this real quick, which is the Gleason's map. You know, we covered it for the first 3 years. We've kind of glossed over it since, which is the flat Earth map is the UN flag. Yeah. People forget that. It's like when you look at the UN flag, it's identical to most of the flat Earth maps that are used out there. And the only thing that's missing on the UN flag, out of sight, out of mind, is Antarctica. A giant continent, not on the UN flag. Why not? Why isn't it? Instead, you've got this big spiky wreath that almost surrounds the entire thing. Why would you have that? You hide it in plain sight. It's brilliant. And yet the UN flag is completely legitimate, and the flat Earth map is entirely crazy. It's like, okay, that's fine.
So then there's the center. So Hyperborea, you familiar with that?
Oh yeah. What
is that connected? Is that a thing, or is that something? Because there's also something else I'm curious about too. Let me just back up a little bit. Mm-hmm. In ufology and paranormal studies, there's good science, there's bad science, there's everything in between. There's some theories that make sense, some theories that don't make sense.
Right.
Even though it's all theories within the same spectrum, it all could be possible, but there's rational theories and there's irrational theories. Right. Applying that to the flat Earth theory. Are there some flat Earth theories for those who believe that the Earth is flat that aren't actually true?
You mean like subsets inside the flat Earth thing? Do we have? No, yeah, you bet.
So that's what I mean with Hyperborea being. Is that associated? There's Tartaria. There's mudslides. There's the dome.
Well, let's start with the big one, which is dome versus no dome. 70 to 75% of flat earthers believe in a dome, and the other 25-30% don't believe in the dome. And most of the people that don't believe in the dome, it's just because they don't like the thought of being enclosed. You know, it's like, man, you're fencing me in. You're being all
but you can't go there anyways. But it's the thought.
Yeah, it's the thought of it. And and I get it, which is what was, I think, part of the rationalization. I was worried that when people figured out that they, instead of this giant, vast universe, you're living in a big studio apartment, that there were some people who are just going to freak out. Yeah. But apparently that was a release valve, which is like, no, it's still flat, but there's no dome. It's like, yeah, but then you still have to deal with the physics of no dome, the whole vacuum versus the atmosphere and, that whole thing. But they're perfectly happy with it. I mean, at the end of the day, which is why I mentioned like the Scottish Highlands, which is like, flat earthers. I've gone to a bunch of conventions and meetups. Oh yeah, we'll debate pretty, not necessarily heatedly, but calmly what we disagree with. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, at least we all can agree it's not a globe, which is why the community just grew and grew and grew and grew. Oh, you can have your own thing. The North Pole, the Hyperborea, or is the giant magnetic mountain that's at the North Pole. Some people believe in it. I couldn't give you percentages. Some people don't. But everyone agrees. Oh yeah, it could be a possibility. All I can tell people is like, look, Admiral Byrd in 1926 went to the North Pole, and whatever he found there was significant enough and matched up the ancient maps that I'm sure the government and the Vatican and other people had. And it's like, oh crap. Well, if the North Pole thing is there, we gotta check the outer thing. And that, because I would have thought if he would have found something, the secret, Admiral Byrd diary, he went to the center of the earth and met the king of the world and all that, that he would have stayed. He would have kept running missions. Like, no, immediately they sent him to Antarctica, immediately. And they left him there for 30 years until he died. And he didn't die in Antarctica. He died of a heart attack back in his home. But I think that's because he was way too open in his press conferences. He was letting things slip, which was, again, you remember the thing he did on Longines Chronoscope, where he was saying, like, the little thing he said, like, oh, yeah, there's a mountain range made out of coal, and there's oil, and there's gas, and there's uranium. Well, I probably shouldn't have said that. It's like, dude, you're on television. And the military's going, okay, all right, this is his last tour.
Yep, kill him. Yep.
We can't just start talking, because if he's going to slip there, eventually he's going to slip about something else.
So as an investigator, okay, my job is to find like the truth. Look at the facts, look at both sides, blend it in the middle, and determine motive and intent. Okay, so motive and intent is really, really hard to prove if you don't have any evidence. It's possible. Right. Everything is possible. Everything is possible. It's likely. We don't know. We look at the facts. Who cares? Move on. But the intent and the motive is what gets the conviction. So my approach has always been like, if this is true,
right?
Why? We already kind of covered that. But then, what's our purpose?
Okay.
So they know that. Why are we we're needed? So this kind of gets that Garden of Eden feeling. Like, yeah,
let's do the first part first. I'll throw it at you, which is because I've asked other journalists and investigators this, which is, if you found out that this world was, again, forget about what I said about the reason, would you tell people? Now, your initial knee-jerk response would be, yeah, but people have a right to know. But the longer you think about it,
well, you know what? Let me back up too. So, like, my wife and I were kind of talking about this not too long ago. We were out on the water, and we could really get a good picture of, like, not seeing any buildings, not seeing a little bit of land, and looking around and going, like, it could be fucking possible, because we were right in the right spot. Right. And then we were talking about Elon Musk and talking about how he's made many attempts to, send rockets out into space. And we see some things that look questionable, and perhaps he's hitting the firmament and he can't do that, and all these other things. We don't know what's going on. Right. Then all of a sudden he makes a deal with NASA for whatever freaking reasons. And then the thought was, maybe he was trying and he was doing really good science, and he was trying to find out for himself, and then he discovered it. He located it. So then a private meeting was held. They had a conversation with him and just said, if we're going to help you, or if you stop doing whatever you're doing, now that then, you're going to stop doing that. And then I was thinking to myself, if I was in that position, I would need to know what the consequence would be if I told everybody that.
Right.
And if the consequence was, if you break the firmament, we will flood, we will die, I would keep that a secret.
Sure.
If you go over there on the other side, there's another race that we're not supposed to be involved with. They will kill every single one of us. I will keep that secret.
Sure.
So it depends on the consequence of releasing the said secret. So yes, I would keep it a secret depending on the consequence.
There you go. Yeah. And again, reporters, it's funny watching people rush into, it's like, why, again, the question all the time is like, why not tell everybody? It's like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea on paper.
Yeah.
Until you start thinking about it on a mass scale, because everything would change. Again, you could tell people going all the way back to the day, you look up ancient cosmology. If you Google ancient cosmology and click on images, everybody drew the same thing. Everybody drew a snow globe. Everyone. And then you changed it for good reason back then, which was and I use this in the clues, which was it's the wildlife preserve argument, which is you put anything in a wildlife preserve, buffalo, caribou, whatever it is, 1,000 acres, give them grass and water and stuff, they're happy. They don't care about anything, right? You put 20 people in that wildlife preserve, all they're going to do is they're going to walk to the fence and they're going to say, why is this fence here? Why are we on this side? What's on the other side of the fence? Who built the fence? Did we anger the fence people? Go get some of those buffalo. We're going to sacrifice something to the fence.
Yeah, what do you want in? Yeah.
Yeah, and it just goes on. They would be obsessed with the fence. We love a mystery, and we do not like. I mean, confinements drive us insane. So
keep us far away from it, that we don't ask the questions and we don't challenge them.
Right, and you come up with this wonderful illusion, which is there is no fence. Why are you looking for a fence? There's no fence. We were wrong about the fence. 500 years ago, we were totally wrong about the fence. Now you can go around all day long like an ant on an orange. You're never going to find it. And for 99.99% of the people, they're fine with it. They're absolutely fine. To your question, though, as far as motive, okay, then we're getting into the little bit of existential stuff, which is why do it? Why build a place like this, right?
And why not have any whistleblowers too?
The what?
Well, we need significant whistleblowers as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. By the way, if you're going to contain this, one of the old arguments is, especially with NASA, is that you can't keep it a secret. NASA, even if you have compartmentalization, you can't keep it secret. Oh, yes, you can. Look, the Manhattan Project was kept a secret. Granted, it was the 40s, but you still kept it. And there was hundreds of thousands of people refining enriched radioactive materials. Nobody knew anything because you don't tell them, right? The wonderful movie, which I love so much, from the late 1970s, was Capricorn 1, which talked about astronauts that were canceled from a Mars mission and then told to fake it. And they all cracked and then they got hunted down. But when it came to NASA, the only people that knew, other than the high brass, were the telemetry guys. Telemetry, for those of you who don't know, are the people that track any object in 3D space once it leaves visual range. So as soon as you can't see it with binoculars, you have to ask those guys. It's like, hey, where is it? It's 60 miles that way, and it's this altitude, it's traveling at this speed, right? Well, that data has to come from somewhere, so that data has to be fake. And in Capricorn 1, that's how the whole thing started, because there was a guy who wrote his own program and said, he goes, this is weird, the transmission, he goes, it can't be coming from 70 miles away. And he was disappeared so quickly that it still spooks me to this day. I mean, he was erased from existence. You didn't even see how he died. All you knew was his apartment was rented and his HR thing was gone. It was like he never was born. So anyway, that's how, you have to keep things locked down. So most NASA people, I don't care how many people, it's like, oh, my grandfather worked at NASA. Doesn't matter. He didn't know anything. My next door neighbor, when I was living in Boulder, just before I left, was a guy named Wayne Ottinger, and he was the garage mechanic for NASA, the guy. In fact, he designed and built the early lunar module, which was a convertible of all things. I don't know, and they changed it to a hardtop and changed the whole plot line. But again, he didn't know anything about anything. Of course, why would he? He was told, okay, build this, we're going to go to the moon. He didn't have to know. Neil Tyson doesn't have to know. Elon Musk doesn't have to know. None of those guys have to know, because you want them acting as natural as possible, because what happened with the Apollo guys.
But we also have the freedom to explore, because they don't want to confine us. And then when people find out and they look too far, right. That's what I'm saying. An offer is made, and then the ultimatum might be death. Which we know that. So they choose to work. They choose and they switch but that's what I'm saying. If I was told the consequences to doing that, meaning it's protecting humanity, was something that I would understood, I would accept that. And I will protect the secret too. I will carry the Ark of the Covenant, no wonder, because I don't want to destroy everyone, every level in existence. I don't want that on my conscience in the afterlife. Of course I'm working with you. But then that makes me a bad guy.
Does it?
Well, it's because we're missing information. There's no transparency.
I believe, and I've always believed, and I know some truther community members don't agree with me because they're absolutists. It's like, let justice be done, lest the heavens fall. That whole thing, Rorschach style from The Watchmen. But I've been a big believer of the greater good. How I qualify a conspiracy is, I don't look at just what's happening. I look at, okay, why is it happening, right? Mm-hmm. And can I think of an alternative that's do the ends justify the means, no matter how horrible they are, right? It's like playing chess, right? There's certain pawns that are going down in chess. Happens all the time. No one wants to be the pawns, but that has to be made. It happens in the military all the time. Nobody wants to be the bait unit. These guys are going to be sent out there and they are basically fishing with you.
That's called infantry.
It's called infantry.
I know that from experience. Okay,
there you go.
Yeah.
In this case, do you let people know? How I qualify conspiracy is I look at it and I put myself in their shoes and I say, okay, is what they're doing? Are they just doing it? Yes, of course, there's evil groups, but not everybody wears black hats and twirls a handlebar mustache, right? There's some people that do it for the greater good. Mm-hmm. And in this case, especially with the flat earth, I think that's what they were doing, which was, if you tell people in 1960, there's a chance, I don't know how big it was, there's a chance that some countries revolt. There's a chance that you lose total control and then the anarchy starts going everywhere. Now, would it have happened? I don't know, but people in power don't roll the dice like that. They just don't. It's a line from Heat, the movie with Robert De Niro. It's from Organized Crime, but it's true, which is, if there's ever a doubt, there is no doubt. You handle it so that you have nothing. There is no chance. Leave nothing to chance, and that's what I think happened here. Do you want me to get into the why build a place like this?
Sure.
Okay. Why build a place like this? I'm going to give you the genie reference, which is why are we here? Right. Let's get into it. Meaning of life. Here we go.
Well, yeah. So that's the thing, because our understanding is that we work, we slave, we do things, we pay things, we get things,
yep.
We pay taxes pay for all these things, and they do all these things to keep what? The secret? Or are we funding something else for the other side that is telling us to do all this or else?
Well, there's that level, of course. Yeah. I mean, of course, people in power, people in governments are going to use the population the way they see fit. No one's going to know exactly for sure. I mean, the argument I throw at people is, if you ask anybody in the truth community what their top 20 secret societies are in order of importance, right? You're never going to get the same list. Ever. I don't care. I mean, you say, the Illuminati or the Bilderbergs or the Rothschilds or the Council of Foreign Relations or the Trilaterals or the Vatican or some Jewish cabal or the Masons. It just goes on and on and on and on, right? It's like, who runs it? Who's it? It's like, well, they're all intertwined at a certain level. If I had to take a bet, I'd say somewhere in the Vatican, but even they're not an absolute. I think it's a delicate, balanced game. Are there other civilizations on top of that? Older civilization? Yeah, maybe. I mean, people have been talking about lizard people forever. By the way, I love the fact that people that say that the entire British royal family is made out of lizards, and yet they'll be like, yeah, what about flat earth? And they're going, get the hell out of here. I'm going, what? What happened to the lizard people? You don't believe in flat earth?
Yeah,
so
I always say to the ufologists that challenge flat earthers to be like, if you ask, well, we'll get into this afterwards, but the moon landing, if you want to, they also believe that the moon landing, some of them, moon landing is hoax and all that other stuff, which I want to get into in the second half.
Sure.
But, flat earth spends a lot of research trying to, use that same argument to show there's a lie, so
let's back up then. Let's go into that. Which is the flat earth community attacks NASA on a regular basis for obvious reasons, because just about everybody let's get the straight
and
up.
The UFO community attacks NASA on a regular basis because they think they're hiding and cutting the feed and doing all that, but yet a ufologist talking to a flat earther is like, I don't want to fucking talk to you. So and I get that same experience with paranormal community. If I talk UFOs and paranormal, they're like, oh my God, I love it. But if I go to a UFO conference and talk paranormal, they boo me off the stage. It's the same thing. It's just there's this ego, this personality, but it's the same shit. You're both attacking or investigating or questioning the same source that's giving us information. Right. Hollywood, if you
yeah, I give credit where credit is due, and the UFO community did most of the groundwork for us in terms of attacking NASA way before we've only been doing this since 2015. Almost immediately after the Apollo 17 in 1972, the early UFO community was attacking, and of course, why wouldn't they? The nerds of this world. And I'm not picking when I say that. The nerds of this world dissect everything that is in media. And when they saw what was coming out of NASA, they started seeing inconsistencies. And this is different from, say, I mean, it's the same technique of all the websites that came out much, much later, like moviemistakes.com, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, if there's anything that happens, because movies are shot out of sequence for budgetary concerns, and so things happen that are completely inconsistent. It's like that coffee cup moved from there to there, and the character didn't move it, right? Or the big things, you know, all it takes is the weakest link, like the very first print of Lord of the Rings, which was released in theaters. When they were leaving the Shire, there was a white car driving off in the corner of the frame, and nobody caught it. I mean, they went through all the editing and finally got to theaters, and all it takes is, again, one nerd in his underwear going, hey, what's that car doing there? Everybody else was watching The Hobbits, right?
Yeah.
So when the UFO community started looking at NASA images, of course they saw all the inconsistencies and things that didn't make sense. But their audience was so limited. You had to go to a UFO convention, you've set up a table, and people are looking at, and you know, and
space bubbles.
Yeah,
I like that one. Space
bubbles, and I mean, there's so many things, but that was our framework. That was the early stuff, just our stepping stone. And then we started going into all the archives that nobody even cared about, like all the 80s footage that nobody even watched, all the early space shuttle footage, and started destroying NASA because everybody gets into flat Earth, tries to debunk flat Earth first. You know, everybody hates it. And in that process of trying to debunk flat Earth, you will absolutely instinctively lean on NASA. You have to. That's who you go to. Well, NASA will.
And so I went that way too. I'm like, okay, this is a science. This is reputable. It's the government. A lot of money. It's been around since the 60s. Canadian Space Agency came out in the 90s, but Canada used NASA for, you know, the 30 years before they created their own. So they could be in on it, but you know, that's a whole other different thing. Canada.
Right.
Gives info to the states, so we solve the states' problem. Canada has solutions. That's just But the thing is all this stuff happens a lot of time. Like in order to lie, a lot of people have to be in on it, and like a lot goes into a lie.
Right.
So like this is, and for it to be absolutely true, so I believe it. Yes, the money. Yes, the science. These guys are smarter than me. I didn't go to school for this stuff. That's a fact. Right. Here's the information. I don't know these things. These people might know things that I don't know. I don't know how to build a telescope. I don't know how to do all these other things. So let's give them credit for that.
Right.
Let me see this $1 million technology. Let me see these images. And it looks like fucking CGI.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing that bothers me. It's like the moon still looks gray in pictures.
Right.
When we look at the moon, we can see that it's yellow. We can see, you know, that there's different colors, like, you know, plasma moon, whenever you want to get into all those other theories. You know, I trust my eyes, you know, and I know making some of these videos and stuff as our intro, and you'll see in the commercial break, you know, I do graphic design. I do all these other things. I know how to make this shit out of nothing, and it looks like it. So something is being covered up. I believe that. Does that mean they're protecting us from the Earth being a different shape? I don't know, but it's all of the above.
Yeah. The space, it is, for me, I was always a big believer. I'm older, and when I heard the early stuff from the UFO community, which was, it's like, oh well, you know, they're faking the moon landings because there's a secret space program, or they're faking it because there's UFOs in the moon, and I got the whole, or you're just faking it, period, just for like America, rah rah, wave the flag. Oh look, here we are, the only people to ever be on the moon, right? And it was okay. It was a pretty good reason. It satisfied me. But then I got into flat Earth, and then the whole thing opened up because, like, oh, I get it now. It's not that you wanted to fake the moon missions; you had to.
When did the United Nations form?
1947. Cece could probably look that up.
Yeah.
I can look it over.
Just a thought that come in, associating facts, as I'm just thinking, like, I lost the fucking thought.
What, 40s when they did the flag?
Well, so they film it, okay? If it is fake,
right?
There's other space races, because it was a space race. There's other people trying to get on the moon. So why doesn't Russia, for an example, rat out the United States?
Mutually assured destruction, believe it or not, even though that's a term we use for something else.
because that's why I was thinking United Nations, but they're not part of the nations. They're not even part of NATO.
No,
probably separate Tartary and all that other stuff too. So why not?
The Russians, for the most part, want to leave well enough alone. They're extreme. Well, back then it was the Soviet Union, but they are an extremely stable group. Again, not the most creative bunch in the world, but extremely stable. It's like, let's just keep doing what we're doing, be self-sufficient if possible, and not rattle anybody. Now, they were part of the space race, yes, and they were also part of the Antarctic discovery, not just before then. So what I think happened was, again, everything was in flux. So imagine, they were the first ones to, they started the whole thing with Sputnik, and supposedly putting guys up in space and everything. They were doing extremely well compared to us. And then the space race, the Time magazine covers are great. A cosmonaut, an astronaut racing towards the moon, and everybody knew about the space race thing. But then something funny happened, which was somebody realized, probably on the Hollywood side of things, that the productions could not be consistent. Meaning, the story should have been the Americans get to the moon and put a couple guys. Then the Russians put a couple more guys. We put a small base. They put a bigger base. And then Time magazine runs a story that says, has the Cold War reached the moon? Right? That's the narrative that it should have been. But somewhere along the line, they realized that the production values would have been completely different. They were way too obvious. So what I mean by that is, if you had two different studios just in America try to make the identical same movie, you're going to have inconsistencies between those two studios. Well, imagine if there's a studio in, I don't know, an Air Force base in Nevada, ours, and then something outside of Moscow. You would never, I don't care how many phone calls you make, you are never going to, remember, this is the 60s. You're never going to get those two to line up. They're never going to line up. There's going to be, people are going to figure it out, because people, especially nerds, they're going to be like, why is the Russian, moon dirt look brown? Why are the stars, why do they have star? Somebody at some point said, okay, you guys got to back out. We're going to take it from here. Mm-hmm. And quietly, without any fanfare, and again, it's a mystery that nobody wants to solve, which is the Russians just stopped. The space race ended. The Americans got there, and then we went a whole bunch more times, and then 1972, we're like, well, this is boring. We're not going to go back and again. Goodbye, everybody. Roll credits. And that was it. And then the Russians just quit. That's never happened in the history of sports. First person crosses the finish line, and the other people just walk off the course.
Yeah.
No, never.
They had to be in on it.
And nobody, well, at the highest levels, yes. And then all the other countries, there's only, supposedly, I think there's 5 launch-capable countries. Russia, the United States, China, Europe, and Japan. I don't want to count Israel. Don't even get me started on that. But at the highest levels, yes. But the rest of them, yeah. In fact, I asked this girl in Ireland. I remember asking her, because I just drives me nuts. Every single year it gets worse. I go, so when we going back? Right now, I was asking her back in 2018, 2019. And with just these lights in her eyes, she goes, soon. We're going back soon. I'm going, yeah. So American presidents have been saying that every 4 years since Reagan. We've been telling people, oh yeah, we're committed. And now, of course, the Artemis thing.
So they made it. That's what I was going to say. They made an attempt. That's what kind of preference for this. They made an attempt. Now they're trying it again on Saturday.
Yeah. Again, what are they?
Where are they going? What are they doing, and why?
I have told people for years. I said, if they came to me, if NASA came to me with a dump truck full of money and said, we need you to fake the moon mission, I'd say, get that truck out of here. It'd be the scariest thing for a producer ever, because it has to be perfect. If it is not perfect, the nerds are going to tear it apart. They're just going to shred it. I mean, they were so scared that the Tesla Roadster in space didn't get any traction, that they dropped that.
Technology has changed so much now. So they could, you look at space in the movies like that. It's CGI. We know that it's a movie, but I mean, how is the folk going to be able to tell the difference when now we have these advanced technologies to display crisper images?
Because in the end, for some reason, I don't know why, there are weak links in that chain. Meaning the ISS, a great example of that, right? Spend lots of money shooting the interior scenes of the ISS, but they make dumb mistakes. I mean, with the hair and the wires and the layers that screw up and the VR technology that glitches out, because the traditions have gotten them in trouble. Any producer will tell you, avoid shooting live if all possible, because Murphy's Law, everything goes wrong when you're trying to shoot live. And yet it's like, they keep trying to go with the tradition of, oh, we need this class of school children to talk to the astronauts live. It's like, no, you don't want to do that. That's a terrible idea. You're just asking for it. But again, the general population, for the most part buys it. But no, the ISS interior is the worst. It's absolutely terrible. So Artemis, I can't wait to see what footage they released. Just in the initial pass, with the crash test dummies that they're sending around the moon. Which of course begs the other question: why are you sending crash test dummies? You've already done this flawlessly back 50 years ago. What are you doing? And
there's a lot of money, there's a lot of tech, there's new technology, it's bigger, better, allegedly, through all of these things, right? Like, I mean, like, for people who believe it, there's a lot of hope that they're going to go back to it. So if that first one was a fake one, and if everything we talked about is true, why are they doing this again now?
Oh, you mean Artemis?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Why now?
I'm trying to figure it out. It's like, what are you hoping to prove? There's no way even with the tech we have, unless you do pre-recorded, I just can't see how you're going to be able to get it by the geeks. There's going to be, especially us. You got to remember our group, my circles, we're waiting for it. We're salivating. It's like, give us the footage, give us the freaking footage, so we can shred it. And of course, the way social media is set up, we can blanket the internet with all sorts of fun stuff. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, did you buy this? Did you buy that?
See, what I think is there's been enough, if it's true and if it was fake,
Yeah.
Or perhaps it was real and also fake, meaning they went there but didn't show the footage of what actually happened. That could be possible. Depending on, we'll talk. Yeah. We'll talk about it. So maybe now that they're going back perhaps to film a better production, because we've pointed out all these flaws and misconceptions or misinterpretations, to have a better piece of evidence to reinstate the control. But why not? I don't know.
Can I throw out something at you?
Yeah.
If you were going to squash the conspiracy crowd, I mean, going all the way back to the UFO days, what you would need to do is you have to land in the Sea of Tranquility. People love nostalgia. I mean, Top Gun Maverick was a great example of that. You go back to the Sea of Tranquility where all the crap is, all the junk. You don't have to land on it. Just land near it and go over there.
Make sure it's still there.
Oh, yeah, the flag, stand next to the flag. If the flag's tipped over, you put it back up. That's symbolic. Yeah. You can reminisce all day long. But they are landing as far away from the Sea of Tranquility as you could ever land. And not only us, here's something American Western media doesn't even talk about. China has been claiming that they've had a rover on the dark side of the moon for 4 years. And it's like, okay, why didn't China land in the Sea of Tranquility? My God, that would have been a coup. You land with your rover, and you go over and you accidentally knock over the American flag. It would have been brilliant.
Well, any other country could show up at any time and be like, look, they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Your country lied. Your country failed.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened. So, okay, let's talk about the sun and the moon then.
Okay.
Inside, and I'm skipping the commercial break. Fuck it. Sorry, guys, but
all right. Hey, you don't have to.
No, that's not good. Well, it depends. I don't want to hold you more. This could go on forever. We could do a 3-hour show if you wanted.
Well, no, we can't do a 3 hour. But...
So we're going to skip the commercial break.
Okay.
So the sun and the moon. So from what I'm understanding and what I am observing, these are the things that don't make sense to me. Is how the sun, is how the eclipse happens, how it's just perfectly placed in one place to another to be far enough away to be able to cover the entire thing perfectly.
Right. One of those coincidences, yeah.
Yeah, all those coincidences, things like that, as if it was placed.
Yeah.
Understanding the science and how nothing is, all these other things that just seems too specific for me.
Right.
It does appear to be within this atmosphere, as I've observed from a plane. It doesn't appear to be very as large as it's described, but then again, I can't go as far as that. So these are just visual observations that I've seen with my own mind, but I'm not a scientist, and I don't work for NASA, and I don't know these things, and I can't prove it. But what exactly is the moon and the sun within this flat Earth model, I guess?
Okay, the sun and the moon, and I know I'm going to try to stay away from the planetarium argument a little bit because a lot of people don't even know what a planetarium is. But the sun and the moon are independently lit objects. Could be 2D, could be 3D, not really sure, but there is almost no relation to each other. So let's talk about the coincidences real quick. We'll just cover the moon, which is the moon eclipses the sun perfectly, because supposedly not only is it 400 times less, more narrow than the sun, but it's 400 times closer than the sun. It matches up perfectly. So, okay, that's not the coincidence that bugs me. Part that bugs me is, again, your average person doesn't know, because even though it's the most photographed object in the history of man, which is the moon only shows you exactly one side. You only see one side of the moon. It doesn't even change. It's locked in with us to where it only shows this one particular face of the moon. It doesn't even change a quarter of a degree in 10 years. It's always exactly the same. In astronomy, that's staggering, absolutely staggering. But let me get into the one of the things that was one of my 5 big proofs, which is the moon temperature. Some guy called into a podcast I was doing 6 years ago now, and said, "Yeah, man, the moon's cold. It's generating a cold light." I'm going, again, I've been in flat Earth for already a year, and I was going, okay. It's like, okay, what are you drinking tonight? And he goes, "No, man, you guys look into it. It's a real thing." I'm going, okay, sure, why not? And because the moon, supposedly, if you believe the relationship between the sun and the moon is this glowy thing, another thing, which is like it glows, even though the astronauts, it wasn't glowing when they were on it, but whatever. The moon is glow, this kind of a white tint because it's reflecting the sun's light. That's not true. That light is being apparently generated by the moon itself, and we know this because it is generating a cold light, a cold laser light, which is something we have been doing in universities for some years. In fact, you can go to Amazon and type in cold laser light, and you can find health and beauty products. We've been able to do this for some years. But by that I mean it is warmer in the moon shade than it is the moon light. So if it's 90, I'm not going to convert it to Celsius for you guys, which is if it's like 80 degrees in the sun, it's 70 degrees in the shade, right? We know that. Well, in the moon, it's the opposite. So if it's 50 degrees in the moonlight, it's 60 degrees in the moon shade, up to 13 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're saying, okay, what does that got to do with anything? Well, it doesn't, except it completely blows away the relationship between the sun and the moon, because it can't generate a negative light. If anything, it should be neutral. But you're talking about, and we've tested this with, not just point and click, infrared thermometers. I think I've got one of these. You can go down to the hardware store. I got one of these lying around. Yeah, hardware store and buy one of these things for like $20, right? They're used for engine blocks and concrete and crap like that. You can do it. You can test, on the ground, and it'll actually show up different for you. And we've also tested it with water and copper strips and all sorts of fun things. But here's where it gets even weirder. So you take a magnifying glass to sunlight, you can burn things, right? Well, if you take a magnifying glass to moonlight, what happens? Does it get warmer or does it get colder? It actually gets colder. Believe it or not, by an extra couple degrees. It's like that's not possible unless it's generating a cold laser light. That was kind of a long version of what I think the sun and the moon is. Do I think it's inside the dome? Yes. Do I think they're rear projected? Probably. But then again, I can't discount that they're being beamed in from something else. If you take a magnifying glass to the sun and you put it on an object, that pinpoint of light is extremely bright, and it gives off its own heat. So who's to say that the sun isn't being just a magnified image from something else? There was, I think it's Eric Dollard. Look up his stuff. A brilliant guy, really quirky guy. Did interviews from like his car, where he was saying that the sun is just a transformer. There's no fusion happening at all. It's actually getting its energy from something else. He doesn't know what, but he wasn't into flat Earth, and I thought that was interesting. It's like, yeah, I bet you, because I always said that the sun is just an incandescent light bulb, and the moon is just an LED bulb. But
so if the moon is emitting a colder light, then that would mean that the sun isn't reflecting off of it. If the sun was
the sun isn't reflecting. They're both, and that would make sense because that would mean they're both very small, very close objects, and they're both independently powered.
So then that kind of brings me into the whole like Middle Earth, black sun kind of concept. Where some suggest that sun in the bottom of the Earth is actually what's emitting light towards the moon. We kind of get into the Masonic thing there.
Sure. I'm not going. But I should.
There's also a theory that the moon is plasma.
Yep.
It's not solid.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Again, on the ground, we can say a lot of certainty, but when it comes to up there. I mean, I should also preface real fast because I probably didn't explain it, because a lot of people, when they look at like flat Earth maps, they're like Googling flat Earth images. The sun and the moon are pretty big on the map by comparison. It's like, no, in most of our stuff, they're less than 50 miles wide, but you can't draw an object less than 50 miles wide. You can't even see it on the map. So we have to draw like the sun 2,000 miles wide, which is huge. And because people then follow up, it's like, how can you have time zones if the sun's that big? It's like, the sun isn't that big, but we have to draw it that big because, again, I think it's part of the genius of this design.
So you can see it. So speaking of times, are there time zones in a flat Earth map?
Oh yeah. But the time zones only work if the light source is very, very small, like 50 miles wide. I mean, if the map is really, really huge, and hell, I've got a little object sitting over there. I mean, and even that. The lights are on it are probably a couple hundred miles wide, and you can see the light shines there and it's dark on the other side. Oh, you could also look this up on the app that we built on this. There's real time called the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, which shows you in real time where the sun is and why there's light and dark areas. But the key is that the objects are very, very small. Very, very small.
Yeah, so that app is interesting. I've played with a couple of those apps where I've looked at my watch, I've looked at the real things, looked at the time, and I kind of see, it's accurate. But I mean, I don't know how the map, it's probably the same math, but the movement is different.
Yeah.
But yet, where it says the moon and the sun is going to be, I've seen it in those areas. So it is accurate, using a different perspective.
Let's get into the sun and real quick, because people say, well, the sun sets and the moon sets. Forget about the moon. The sun setting. Well, obviously, we've all been to the beach and watched the sunset. It's like, no, the sun's just going away. And by that, I mean, you can zoom in on the sun if you've got a special filter on your camera, and you can make it pop back up until eventually, and this is the part, again, the genius of the design of this place. The only reason... In fact, the only reason the sun fades away at all in the distance is the thickness of the atmosphere. Meaning, we've all seen the underwater things. Like, you can only see a whale from like a couple hundred yards away because the water's too thick. The atmosphere we're breathing in here is not nothing. You're living basically in a transparent fog, which is only 99% transparent. Meaning, we're living in 80% nitrogen and 20% oxygen. Forget about the trace gases for now. That compounds over time, because one of the other questions people throw at me, they're not dumb questions. Like, why can't you see Japan from California, and why can't you see Europe from New York, and why can't you see Mount Everest from everywhere? I go, because the thickness of the atmosphere makes every object disappear, including the sun. The sun can only go a few hundred miles off into the distance before the atmosphere is so thick it can't penetrate. And you think, oh no, that's a stretch. I go, really? Because any scuba diver will tell you, you get down to 200 feet underwater, middle of the summer, sun at high noon, you will not see the sun. It cannot penetrate. The sun only, light can only go so far.
Now, with the flat Earth movement being global, or round. Well, how would you say that? I can't say global. How do I say that? How do I say that?
Flat
Being,
everywhere or
being
worldwide.
everywhere.
Worldwide.
Right, to be politically correct. So with the flat Earth
That's right.
movement being everywhere.
Yeah.
Has it been tested where someone on one side has seen it leave and then seen it, and on somewhere on the other side was able to verify that it was continuing its travel?
The sun?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's a wonderful playlist I've got. I think it's mostly David Weiss's stuff, because
our perspective is based on what we can see, and we're trapped, and we're confined in our own places and our resources and whatnot too.
Oh no, we've been the sun. We've been answering sun questions for a long time. In fact, I will paste it in the chat for you just so you can. No worries. Just so you can take a look. But it's he's got a special playlist just for that. And no, we look at the sun in just about every aspect. In fact, the sun has been used to our advantage in a couple places, because you can't do we'll do laser tests over water at night, but you can't do lasers during the day, right? Because the sun's out. But you can use a mirror on the other side and reflect the sun's light and use that as a poor man's laser. It's way brighter than any laser. And we've used that for water tests, and it's been fantastic. But no, the sun, again, it's tricky because the atmosphere that we live in changes. It's always in a state of some sort of flux, meaning between atmospheric pressure and heat and humidity and even wind. You sometimes won't get the same results, on any given day. We've run tests sometimes in 30-degree weather, freezing. We'll just say freezing for you guys. And sometimes during the middle of summer, and we'll get slightly different results, which why, you get some inconsistencies. However, the big thing that gets people into flat Earth is the boats going over the horizon stuff, long distance photography, which is everybody since the beginning of anything. The ships go off, it's like, bye, right? And the ships go off, and it's like, well, and eventually they say, well, why'd they disappear? Well, because they went over the horizon. And then HD technology changed all that. Even 25 years ago, you could have a $3,000 camera. You still won't be able to see anything. Now you can pull out a phone, zoom in.
You can zoom. It looks like it's over the curve, and then zoom in, and it's still.
Now it's there again. And depending on the water, what's happening in the water, you can see some of it or all of it, and depending on weather conditions. And it's amazing. And people, again, because we don't, especially in America, we don't teach people. It's like, why is that important? Because eventually that boat or whatever it is has to be on the other side of the hill. Right, on the other side of the mountain. If you have a friend that lives on the other side of the mountain, you're never going to see his house. Well, why can we see this boat that's over 1,000 feet, on the other side of the curvature? And people come, oh, it's refraction or this or that. And it's like, no, we got some wonderful videos to blow that out of the water. Of course, yes, there are videos that seem to show that boat going mass, thing first, but they never zoom in to the level, they're editing the hell out of it just to use, what they can. And it's like, no, for every one of those videos, we've got 20 that show the exact opposite.
So is the curvature a thing?
No.
At all?
No, I don't. I believed in the curvature. There was a map out there called the Orlando Ferguson map that I subscribed to right off the bat in 2015, which I don't know why he drew it like that. It was a cool map, but it looks like a roulette table, right? Yeah. And people within the first 2 weeks called me up and said, yeah, you can't use that map anymore. And it's like, why? It's like, well, because it's perfectly flat. Every shot that I didn't tell people to do it, but everybody ran down to the beach and started doing long distance photography. Yeah. And then the other guy, what sold me though, is somebody called up and he goes, yeah, man, you can't use the roulette table. And I go, why not? They go, because all the numbers of a roulette table add up to 666. I'm going, is that true? It is.
Is it? Wow.
That's true. It's like, wow, who'd have known?
Huh.
So no, there's no curvature. Of course, there's valleys and there's hills and stuff, but at the end, both edges of the map line up. Like states down here, like Kansas. University students said, oh yeah, Kansas is absolutely tabletop flat. There's no curvature to it, meaning the elevation did not change on either side. And so, and when you ask scientists, it's like, well, doesn't that kind of show you something? It's like, no, it's a flat part on a globe. I'm going, okay, an entire state, and that's not the only one. Or how about look up like the Salar del Uyuni salt flats down in Bolivia, which is tabletop flat, 100 miles square in all directions, And when a little bit of rain falls, it gets like a half inch, turns into this giant mirror. It's fantastic. So no curvature.
Okay. Got a question from one of our members. Jim Grimm Seeker says, something I've never got an answer for. How do they know how fast everything is spinning? They can't even get the speed of an unidentified. So.
Yeah. Okay. So how fast everything? The spin of the Earth. There's a couple ways we can go here. The spin of the Earth. It's called the Coriolis effect, which is it's like a merry-go-round. If you believe in science, in a merry-go-round, if you stand in the center, the weather's great. But if you're on the outside, you're hanging on for dear life. Well, if that's true, and the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and scientists, it's 24,000 miles around, so it's really, really slow by comparison. It takes 24 hours to go all the way in one revolution. And it's like, yeah, but what about the centrifugal force? Meaning, if that was the case, there's a couple things would happen. One would be the oceans. Water, any sort of liquid responds very, very well to any sort of motion. You drive in your car and you're holding a glass of liquid. Make a hard left turn and see what happens. Everybody's with coffee and drinks. It happens all day long.
I carried a bowl of soup the other day and I spilt it and I was like, I forgot when you tip the bowl, the soup.
Oh yeah. If that's the case, then why haven't the oceans adjusted to that equator? Meaning there shouldn't be any land on the equator at all. It should be this big bulge of water. It should be a big spare tire of water around the outside. And it's not like Saturn's rings, right? Saturn's rings, a big bunch of rocks supposedly around the outside. Well, if the Earth, went to the same sort of lines, there should be water because we're the only ones with water. And it's not. So, and by the way, to the speed, every military guy I've ever talked to, I don't care what the snipers, that shoot, I shoot up to a mile, right? Every cannon, tank, missile, torpedo guy, every military guy I've ever talked to, they all say the exact same thing, which is like, oh yeah, we know about the curvature of the Earth and we've heard about the spinning of the Earth. We never work it into firing solutions, ever. In fact, the tank guy was really adamant about it. He goes, do you know how hard it would be to shoot in that sort of environment? Because not only would you have to take into account, the curvature, right? He goes, that's not even that part's hard. But the spin, you'd have to look on the map and see where you were on the map and then adjust. Because remember, supposedly it's spinning at 1,000 miles of the equator, but in Canada, it's only spinning like 300 to 400 miles an hour, right? Mm-hmm. So you'd have to adjust it based on that. And so anyway, they all said the same thing, which is like, oh yeah, we know about it. We never use it, ever. And we're shooting, everything from 10, tanks were shooting at 10 miles, howitzers were 30, missiles were longer. And even the sub guys said the same thing. It's like, look, torpedoes are no different. We're shooting underwater, but supposedly there's a curvature of the Earth. If we didn't take into account the curvature, all the torpedoes would surface. They'd start jumping out of the water.
And planes too don't go.
Oh god. Oh yeah, a plane. Okay, yeah. Planes are just slow-moving projectiles, right? Depending on which you are. Let's not even get into the fighter planes, which is a whole other thing. Like the SR-71. How does that even work? You're flying that fast, or the Aurora, whatever they're using now. By the way, on a side note, I love the fact that when they retired the SR-71, right? It went complete secrecy, right? And then the United States Air Force says, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're retiring our spy plane," and the media are going, "The what spy plane now?" Right? Yeah. And they said, they went through it. They were showing off, and they said, "Well, what are you going to replace it with?" And the general goes, "Oh, nothing." It's like, what? Of course you did. But planes, if you've ever flown in a plane, a commercial airliner, if you're not dealing with turbulence, when they get up to cruising altitude, it is absolutely dead level, right? You sit up there, and if you've been on a plane on a really nice flight, they go level, you feel nothing. The plane does not move for several hours on end. Well, that's not how it should work if it's a curvature. A curvature, you're either nosing down slightly every once in a while or nosing up, depending on what you believe in. Somewhere along those lines, you're going to have to adjust the curvature, depending on what pitch you have with the aircraft. Never, ever happens. Never, ever happens. And again, people don't get it. If the curvature is, let's give it to the audience, if the curvature is for the first 500 miles, right, it's 8 inches per mile, which is 8 inches per mile squared. It's not like stairs. right? It gets more and more drastic. So at 10 miles, it's 800 inches, which is 10 times 10. This is 100 times 8 inches. But at 50 miles, you're pushing 1,700 feet. And then it gets just even worse and worse because eventually, if it's a globe, it's got to go vertical. So eventually it goes off into infinity. But the first 500 miles, that's what.
See, another interesting, call it associated fact. So like something, when you look at one map, look at the way you're told, and you look at another map, and then it makes sense is those flight paths. So if you look at like layoffs or whatever you call it, those connecting flights,
right,
on a globe map, it seems out of the way. Like you would travel here, there, and then down. Why couldn't you just go in a straight line?
Yeah.
The explanation we get is just, whatever. That's with connecting flights. You have to pick things up, and blah seems irrelevant. But when you follow the same path on the flat Earth map, it's a straight line.
Somebody tipped me off to that 7 years ago. A British guy. He said, "Look at the long haul flights." And David Weiss recently, I got to give that guy credit. He, it's the little things you miss. He's going. And what we mean by that is when you're flying from somewhere in the Southern Hemisphere to somewhere in the Southern Hemisphere, Africa to South America to Australia to New Zealand, they are not going straight across the Southern Atlantic, the Southern Pacific, or the Indian Oceans. They're going north. In fact, they go over, they cross into the, over the equator into the Northern Hemisphere and then come back down these wild routes to where if you try to get a direct flight, not only will you run into mostly double connections and triple connections, and it takes you better part of a day or more to do it, but they in some cases you cannot find. I talked to a travel agent down in South America, and they said, you know how different it is down here, right? Again, she believed in the globe, but she gets starting to pick up on it. She goes, from some capital cities to some capital cities in the Southern Hemisphere, there are no direct flights. Doesn't matter how much money you pay. There are no direct flights. And David Weiss pointed out, he goes, oh, yeah, by the way, in the Northern Hemisphere, that never happens. You'd expect the opposite to happen, right? The Northern Hemisphere, you go dip below the equator and come back up. Never, ever happens. Mm-hmm. And not only that, so, and by the way, on a flat Earth map, what Ryan's trying to say here is that the paths on a flat Earth map they aren't this horrible, up and down. They're shallow dog legs or they're straight shots, and they make much more sense. I mean, the emergency landings are a great example. Like if you look on a globe, when there was a lady coming from, I think, Taiwan to Los Angeles, and she had a baby, right? And all of a sudden she went into labor. It's like, oh, we got to divert. So Hawaii was right in front of them on a globe, but they didn't go to Hawaii. They went north to Alaska. And you think, why the hell would they go to Alaska on a flat map? That's exactly what the closest airport was.
That was the closest, yeah.
Was Alaska. And it is staggering how many, again, people, and I still to this day get people to say, well, I can still get I can still get a flight from Santiago, Chile to Auckland, New Zealand, right? It's like, show me what the route is. And I go, you'll never find the route because the GPS drops off. Doesn't matter if you see that icon or not. The latitude and longitude disappear when you are about 150 to 200 miles away from any ground-based tower. Mm-hmm. And it goes into approximate mode. And it's not just the Southern Hemisphere. It's also the Northern Hemisphere, like from, I found out later, was like if you go like from Los Angeles to Hawaii, there's no islands between Los Angeles and Hawaii. Otherwise, it'd be tourist islands. And when they get off about 200 miles offshore of California, blink, latitude and longitude goes into approximated or estimated mode. And what that means for your listeners is that means they know approximately where the plane is. They don't know exactly where the plane is. They're just saying, if it keeps heading that way at that speed, eventually it's going to run, get back in the range. It is GPS, the United States Department of Defense system is just a new wrapper for the old Department of Defense system, which was called LORAN, which was a ground-based radar system. They've siphoned a whole bunch of money, told people there's 32 satellites up there, and yet there's these massive dead zones that when a plane goes missing, like Malaysia, drops off in the Indian Ocean, people are like, don't know where it went. It's like, what are you talking about? It was a flagship. It was a 777. There's no way you could lose that plane. Oh, yeah, there's dead zones out there. So, sorry, I ramble.
No, it's okay. It's all good. Okay, so we're covering a lot of freaking ground here too, and this is where it's like where it gets complex, because it's not just the Earth being flat. That's just one thing. It's all these other things, and whether the shape of the Earth doesn't matter. There are still things we question, and when we question it and we use other logic, and of course like there's some comments as well in the chat, and the only reason why we're not mentioning it is because you're not a member and those are the rules. But there are we give priority to those who are members, but I am reading the comments and in defense, and it's still theory. So there are things that we can measure. There is mathematics. Math doesn't change. The math doesn't lie as long as you're using the right map or the right tools to calculate things. So not only coming back to the flat math and map and the globe map.
Right.
What I've done to kind of fact check is the time. So the time the flight would take.
Right.
You can do some math when you draw the lines out and calculate the distance and do this other stuff, even though it's in a pattern. But if you do a straight line as well, the math of that determines the time and the distance is the same or very similar. So the path has changed, but then the math lines up, which is tricky because when you're like trying to look at it on a GPS on your phone when you're not supposed to use that in an aircraft.
Right.
Don't know if that's technically to not shut the plane down and have it crash, which is a legitimate reason, by the way, or perhaps it's so we don't actually see where we're going, and things like that too. So there's a lot of, but even if we prove that thing to be true, does that mean the Earth is flat? Or does that just mean that this is odd and this is strange? The moon is a different temperature. Does that mean the Earth is flat? How many of these sidebar conspiracy theories that we've gotten into actually associate to the fact that the Earth may be
you're absolutely right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, especially with the moon temperature thing, which I should have probably put a disclaimer in there, which is, does the moon temperature thing prove a flat Earth? No, it absolutely does not. What I try to tell people is, again, why the community it does as well as they do, because it opens up your mind to the possibility. At the very least, the world is not what you think it is. Not even close. And there are secrets within deceptions. There's so many layers of what is going on here that it's hard to even organize them, which I think is deliberate. Human beings love a mystery, and I think this where we are is kind of a learning.
And we're separated, and there's so
factions. Oh, good Lord.
Many different opinions, many different cultures, many different languages.
Yeah.
There's no way that we all could decide on the same fact if we're separated.
Right.
So Project Babel, or not Project Babel, that's what we do. The Tower Babel. Concept of separating anybody.
Which was a good idea because it was too good. The initial civilization was too unified, which was, great idea on paper. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, we know exactly where we are. Everybody's on the same page. Okay, we're building a bridge to the roof now.
Yeah, why not? And then they're like, oh, they're too smart. Get rid of it. Separate so that doesn't happen again. Which means there's a cause. There's a reason we're here, and to do all that.
Yeah.
Cece asks, as a member, says, what is a meteorite? That's a good question. Where do they come from if we're in a firmament?
There you go. That one's it's not tricky, but it's mostly mechanical. Meaning, if you want, first off, a lot of meteorites and comets, are just lights in the sky. But the ones that do come down, I believe, are just part of the automated system. Meaning, how hard would it be if you had the engineering ability to build this place? I don't know, chunk of metal ore, railgun technology, fire at a shallow angle. Try not to aim at any cities, which, by the way, randomly should have happened by now. Should have at least hit cities or satellites. That's a big one, by the way, the movie Gravity. But let me get back to the meteorite thing. 6 billion smartphones. Find me some good footage of a meteorite hitting something. I don't care if it's water, trees, a lake. Oh yeah, there's videos like, here, spark, sputter, and then you might see a flash in the distance. No one sees anything up close. Yeah, and I don't want to get into like the Tunguska blast or anything like that, but but 6 billion smartphones, it should have happened by now, right? The other thing would be if you were firing at a shallow angle. There was a thing in Russia a few years ago. You probably remember this, where something got close to a city, and a meteorite, and it detonated. I don't know, a couple thousand feet up or something like. Some of the other footage around that was the UFO intercepted it, and that would also, I think that as much as I like to say it's a perfect system, I don't think it's completely perfect. There's always little things. Do you remember the line from the movie Contact, where she meets the alien, and it was one of the most honest moments in sci-fi, where she goes, did you build this transport system? And he goes, we didn't build it. We don't know who did. It was here when we got here. We're just kind of maintaining it. It could be that. But anyway, sorry. To the meteorites. Follow up to that, because CC was probably interested in, is like, what about the craters that are already there? Like the big one in, I think, Arizona that was used for the movie Starman. That would be just, terraforming you do between civilizations. Make a nice little crater here, something in the Gulf of Mexico over there. And again, reinforces the meteorite concept, but you don't actually have to drop anything on anybody, which is nice. Oh, sorry, one more thing, which was meteorites in space. So the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, he died right off the bat, but it doesn't really matter. The whole concept is that a meteorite hit a satellite, right, and then spun off into a direction, and cascade effect, it hit all these other satellites, and then the whole sky turned into a wall of jagged metal and wiped out the space shuttle, right? Well, how has that not happened already? Because you remember, you can't retask satellites once they've been hit by anything, right? If you believe in the satellite system, which is once a satellite gets hit, statistics say that eventually spinning off into this direction at this altitude, it's gonna run into another satellite. And we have meteor showers, not just meteor showers all the time, and yet no one ever talks about moving satellites out of the way. Like doesn't never ever happens. And it's like, okay, it should have happened by now. Brilliant, by the way, cinematography in Gravity, but the concept kind of leaves a big hole in meteorites in general. There you go.
So let's talk about Gravity then. So
okay.
Yeah, does, like, I mean, I know it's common flat Earth statement is that gravity doesn't exist and it's a hoax. But I mean, like, if I drop my pen and it lands, that would be the argument to say gravity exists, unless that's not gravity. I
don't think it doesn't exist. I disagree with a lot of flat earthers. Mainstream science says that, if Neil Tyson, great quote, which is, we don't know what gravity is. We can only tell you what the symptoms of gravity are, because we can't replicate it. He goes, gravity is this magical molecular force that pulls things down to the center of the earth.
Right.
We say, at least I say, that gravity is a magical molecular force that pulls things down just straight down. Right? It's not really that much difference. The problem that they have is that they use gravity to explain a lot of things. And the big one that I have yet to find a scientist to come back is the atmosphere. So if you have a second floor in your building, again, you can look up all sorts of things in a vacuum chamber on YouTube. You'll find them all day long. It is not like it is in the movies. A vacuum means there's nothing there. And because nothing is invisible to us, right? We're talking, right? But what we're talking in is full of stuff, nitrogen and oxygen, all sorts of crap. But if you were in a vacuum chamber right now, it would look identical, almost identical visually. So if there's a vacuum chamber above you, it's instant. What happens? You pull the valve. You have a valve above you, and you pull. The air rushes up. It's not like the movies. It is not slow. I'm sorry, because I love the movie Aliens, but the end of it is completely ruined for me. Where she has space behind her, and she's climbing a ladder and fighting that. Right? No, she's dead in a fraction of a second. That's how fast it is. Any submarine guy will tell you. Anyone that does deep sea stuff will tell you it's absolutely instant. So you pull the valve above you, and the air rushes upstairs, right? It's instant. Mm-hmm. Well, when you walk outside, why are you still breathing? Why is our atmosphere still here? Your only response, the only thing you can say is gravity. And then I come back, you mean the same gravity that right over there in your living room couldn't keep the air in your living room from going upstairs? That gravity? And then my follow-up is, tell me what happens at the edge of space. Tell me what happens where our atmosphere ends and space begins, because the law of thermodynamics, it's a law, not a guideline, not a rule. It's a law, which says that pressure cannot exist next to non-pressure without a barrier. That's how it works. And people say, well, that's not, that gravity is the barrier. I go, no, a physical barrier, which is our point. Is like, doesn't atmospheric pressure mean more if it's an actual pressurized system, or greenhouse gases? Doesn't greenhouse gases make more sense if it's an actual greenhouse with a physical barrier? Now, what that barrier is made out of, dealer's choice.
Mm-hmm.
But so no, gravity's real. Now, does buoyancy play into it? Sure, of course.
Yeah, see, all these things are real, but there's parts of it that aren't real that get speculated on, and then you got to remove all the fluff. Like, so that's what I'm appreciating about all this is I'm going to have to, decompartmentalize everything and reassociate things, but
sure,
a little bit of everything would connect to give the full idea and the full picture. So what we have evidence of is government in control of what we say, what we do, what we, all these things in general. We don't have access to fact check anything outside of this other than the people that work for an organization that is notorious for and has been caught many times for fabricating results regardless of what that is. We don't have access to an area that could allegedly prove whether or not there is another space or an outer space, because outer space could simply be just outside of the dome, the outer space, depending on interpretation. The common folk, the general public, have no choice but to believe what they're told by scientists that are projected on mainstream media, which is also controlled and regulated and changed and certain things like that. Right. This channel as well. Who knows? This episode might just have a little, what had happened last time, a Wikipedia banner that says flat Earth is an archaic theory. And that's it. I'm fine with that.
If you put flat Earth in the title, I almost guarantee you'll get that wiki thing underneath.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy with that. That didn't shut it down. I'm okay with that because that makes sense. It's still, it allowed us to have this open concept conversation. So there are all these things that allow it to be possible. And at the same time, all these things allow the other side to be possible. So the problem, in my perspective, is the belief system. So again, some people believe something is true and some people believe some other things are true, and there's that belief, even if the fact is in there. Right. So when you have the facts and you have all the information, you need to decide to go back and forth and move forward and do all these other things. Right. How do we just let this flat Earth thing go, or is there because there's a movement behind it too, right? So why usually? Okay, so let me backpedal a little bit here, because if I compare this to the ufology movement, they push the government. Why? So they can get answers, so they can confirm that there is other life, so we know we're not the only people out there, and perhaps confirm that an experience that they're happening is validated, because they don't have enough information to determine why certain species or certain things are happening in the middle of the night. They want confirmation. They want validation. They want to feel that what they are experiencing is real, and they want to know why. There's no convincing them.
Sure.
So how does the flat Earth movement push towards getting those answers, or what's the end game to get that confession? What's that like for you guys?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. For me, I believe that flat Earth doesn't necessarily even have an end game. It is the framework. It is the picture frame for a canvas we haven't seen yet. Meaning flat Earth appears to be a way to, because remember, we've been allowed and even encouraged in some media things, which means that we're doing the legwork for them. I think flat Earth is being used as a way of opening minds up for the very few things that could be bigger than flat Earth. One would be, of course, yes, the introduction to an older civilization. Right. Like, for example, the thing we talked about earlier, which is you can't, not even 10 years ago, you might have a tough time landing a giant golden spaceship in the middle of London, right? But now, after the flat Earth is the concept again, flat Earth opens the umbrella up for everything. What I love about flat Earth is once people get into it, they revisit. Nothing's off the table for flat Earthers. Meaning, flat Earth is a giant umbrella, and everything else inside it is fair game. So I do think that there's something bigger coming down the road, and that we don't have to push for it. We just use social media as the weapon, and
But it's okay to project it, but it can't be proven.
No, but it doesn't matter, because the concept is easier to understand. And I've said this to many scientists, and they get so infuriated. I go, the reason why we keep growing by attrition is because we've created a model of the solar system, even the universe, that is far easier to understand than theirs. Just the solar system alone, you need to, you need. Well,
if we were to,
does that make it right? No, but people will always go for the easier option.
And I mean, at risk of sounding completely stupid here, but I, as an investigator, like, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. Like, I have to know a little bit of everything to understand how to bring it all together to figure this all out. I'm not an expert in any of these fields other than trying to isolate what the fact is, what the evidence is, and what you're determining to prove. That's how I put the puzzle together. But it still doesn't prove anything other than these types of facts for this particular complaint, and therefore it could be anything.
Sure.
So smart enough to figure out a lot of things, smart enough to figure out a whole bunch of different things. But to understand, the science that makes all these things super complicated is really hard for me to comprehend. But the science that is used to explain the flat Earth stuff and all these other things, as archaic as it may sound, it's an easier read. It feels better. It makes sense. I enjoy that because I get it.
Yeah.
Do I get it because I'm stupid?
No.
Or do I get it because it makes fucking sense?
No, just because you're not great at geometry or trig or calculus or quantum mechanics or string theory or any of the other stuff, the masses are, not that long ago, we didn't have those things, right? And everyone understood the world in a certain way. And it felt, like you're saying, it felt right. It felt instinctive. And especially in social media, if it doesn't resonate, it doesn't go anywhere nowadays. And flat Earth just keeps growing and growing and growing. Even through the pandemic, we were getting, doing conferences and meetups and stuff like that. But before that, we were just, we couldn't get enough people. The chess club is way, way smaller than the band in any school, right? And you can apply that to anything. It's not that they're dumber. It's just that science has their own clique. It's their own thing. The most arrogant thing I've ever heard was when Neil Tyson said, "Science is right whether or not you believe in it." And it's like, okay. And
the media says this person is super smart because they went to this expensive school and did all these other things, right, and they're telling you this. Yeah. And then when you hear it, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter what their credentials are, in my perspective. I'm not trying to shit on the academic community. There's a use for it.
Oh, sure.
But you can still look at the person and you can still tell that they're reading from a script. And there's this idea of us living in a Truman-like show.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Does make sense.
Or look, science goes too far, like a lot of things go too far, especially in America. We take things too far. You want to, the tech we're talking to on right now, that was built by heavy math and science guys. No question. You want to tell me how Skype works? Great. You want to tell me what the core of the Earth looks like? No, you can't, because you're absolutely guessing. But when you put your stamp on it and said, you leave out the part where you're guessing. You should just say, we have no idea what's down there. And
I'm okay with that. The Earth could be flat. The Earth could be round. We could be in a bubble. We don't really know. But, let's be nice to each other and shake hands and let's live,
right,
because we don't know what happens when we die. Like, we can just move on.
Yeah.
We're always fighting because we believe we're being lied to. That's the human characteristic, is we want the truth because we know they're lying to us. We just don't know what they're lying about.
Right.
And they're lying about everything. And that's what makes it hard.
But at least you and your listeners and other people out there, and it's a growing group, at least you recognize that it's happening. It still frustrates me to watch the zombies walking around. It's like, well, he's wearing a lab coat and he's smarter than me. Oh hell,
that's branding.
I gotta throw the Elon Musk thing out there because some people have elevated him to Elon Christ, which is, it's like, look, the guy didn't do anything that he said he was going to do. Yeah, he's a smart guy, right? But he's not Tony Stark. I don't know how that happened, how the government did what they did to make him that. Yes, I know that when you're a billionaire, if you make any statement that's even remotely controversial, you're going to get media attention. But the fact that people don't get, like SpaceX, for example, it runs off government platforms. He fires out of Kennedy. It's like, what? Isn't that a conflict of interest? I mean, he's direct competition to NASA, and yet supposedly the Artemis project is half SpaceX. It's like, how's that even remotely happening? But or one more thing, which is the media scientists, like you were talking about. There's only 3 media scientists: Neil Tyson from America, Brian Cox from Britain, and Michio Kaku from Japan. That's it. Those are the only guys they put on television to talk about science stuff. Unless you want to throw in Bill Nye, which is a whole other story for another guy. He's not even scientist. He has a bachelor's degree in mechanical. He's an actor. He's not even shy about saying it. And yet they throw it. It's like, why is he on the Mars rover panel? Why is he talking about quantum mechanics? And I've talked to producers and I go, what? And said, why do you have Bill Nye on television as much as you do? And they said, flat out, because he looks the part. He's thin. He's angular. He's got those geek features. Wears lab coat well. It's like, why not? And people grew up with him because
marketable. Mm-hmm.
It's like, because he was on Disney, because he had a show on Disney. It's like, yeah, it's like Morgan Freeman had a show on Sesame Street, the electric company spinoff. It's like, does that mean that he should be?
So the other thing too is they also could still be right, but the thing is, it's based on what they're told and based on what they believe and based on what they know, because they can't challenge it either. Like, I don't imagine the people in NASA are all in on it. I think
no,
the
not at all.
And they're doing the work the best they can, and they feel proud. All that stuff is genuine because they feel like they've accomplished something.
Right.
But then there's this other level that's just kind of like, yeah, let's just everyone thinks it happened. Everyone's happy, keeping everybody freaking happy. We made it. We let them get that far. Perfect. Let's move on.
Right.
And like, I share that view with certain layers of the government, because I don't think certain layers within the government actually have the answers, because they might be so far out of the loop as well, but they have to know enough to be able to do the job based on what they understand to do what they think is needed to make the world go around. So there's got to be a sub layer. So we're at the 2-hour mark. We didn't want to do a 3-hour show, but we normally do a half-hour after chat. If you want, we could skip the after chat and go and just do another little bit if you want.
Yeah. Let's do a little bit, because eventually I have to go to a dinner thing. So
yeah. So when do you want to cap it? When do you want to cap it?
Another 15 minutes.
Okay, let's do that. We'll cap it. We'll do the after chat in 15 minutes. Okay. So two other. So what I'm kind of leading into is, you mentioned Illuminati. You mentioned like the controllers and all these other
right.
So let's talk secret societies.
Okay.
Right, because like if there's a secret to be held, there has to be a secret organization to keep said secrets away from everybody.
Right.
So is that a thing? Is it possible? Is it related to flat Earth? What's your
you don't have to keep flat Earth a secret, because the initial concept was locked down in the early 1960s. Meaning, when you started out, most of the work was done for them. The brilliance of flat Earth, it's not like other things. NASA takes a lot of time and money to do. And it started out fairly small, but now it's spiraled in this massive black budget program, which has done all sorts of things. But with flat Earth, most of the work's done